This is Nia Perry, founder and CEO of Gradient Global Collective, and you're listening to the Gradient Global Collective podcast. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on wherever you are in the world. I appreciate you so much for listening. Be prepared to have your socks knocked off by our next guest, okay? I promise you will want to level up just from listening to her personal and professional success. Dr. Roshawnna Novellus, known as the Wealthy Yogi, is the co-founder of Bootstrap Capital and the host of the podcast Startup Funding. She is passionate about helping business owners ready to attract funding. Dr. Novellus has been featured in Forbes, Huffington Post, Wall Street Journal, and Rolling Out. She has also completed the Pipeline's Angel Fellowship, a Kauffman program in angel investing. Dr. Novellus also serves on the Commission on Women for the City of Atlanta and was honored as one of the Women Who Means Business by the Atlanta Business Chronicle. Well, welcome to the Gradient Global Collective podcast, Dr. Novellus.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored.
Oh, no, the honor is out. Well, Dr. Novellus, there are so many things I want to talk to you about today because with your well-rounded experience and really myriad skill set, I could talk to you for hours on all of these topics, okay? So I'm thrilled to have you, and I know you'll add tremendous value to our listeners. So again, thanks so much for being with us.
Of course.
Well, you hold 4 degrees, and I would be absolutely remiss if I did not brag on you for a moment, okay? So just be prepared. You hold a doctorate of science in systems engineering with a minor in finance from George Washington University, a master of science in information technology, emphasizing information systems engineering, a Bachelor of Arts degree in business management economics, and a Bachelor of Science in computer engineering, achieving summa cum laude in both bachelor's degrees. Wow, okay? How important was education to you growing up, and what do you believe has been sort of your biggest takeaway from all of your collegiate accomplishments?
Well, I have always been a strong advocate for education. I always believed that learning new skill sets would prepare me for my next adventure, my next endeavor. So I sought out to learn as much as possible, clearly in school.
I see.
and although a lot of the content that you learn while in higher education institutions doesn't apply to the real world, the strategy in terms of, hey, I want to learn how to do X. What do I need to do? That applies. So the system that you put in place still works, but now we have YouTube instead of books and exams. So yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. So you have clearly always been an achiever, right? So you were homecoming queen and valedictorian out of 800 seniors that I read in your San Diego high school?
That is correct. I was the head of the cheer squad as well, so I was fairly well-rounded.
I see. That's amazing. And here's really where it gets interesting. So you then go on to secure $600,000 in college scholarships from the likes of Bill Gates, among other donors. Yet, with all this accomplishment, I learned that you were, at times, like all women, right, didn't feel really good enough or feel like you were enough, which is heartbreaking because you're so amazing. And I don't even know you, but I know you're amazing. So how has practicing yoga and mindfulness, which I know you study, tell us about that, and how has that given you a more positive self-outlook?
So just like most people, I've had the imposter syndrome, right? And I thought that I will be happy when. So when I achieve another award or receive another degree or something else off of my bucket list. But what yoga taught me is that happiness is found today, right now. And if you're mindful and able to live in the present moment, you're able to find that happiness. So in 2014, I decided that it was time for me to get my yoga certification in Thailand. So I set off to go do that for 6 weeks. And after the first couple days, I hated it. There was no hot water. We had to sit for 12 hours on the floor. And it was slow, classic yoga. I thought I was going to come back looking like a fitness model where I was just sitting still all day. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. This is not the experience that I scheduled or I intended to have.
Sure.
And there was another type A individual there, and she's from Singapore. We became friends because we had similar personalities.
Okay.
And we decided, we started talking about what we needed, what was missing. And we decided to wake up every day at 5:45 in the morning and alternate teaching the hardcore fitness classes.
Okay.
And then we're able to sit and enjoy the certification. So that experience taught me that we have everything that we need. So if we stop complaining and stop wanting to be everything, wanting everything to be different, we can focus on how to make ourselves happy right now and just live a better life immediately.
Wow. There's so much there. Okay. So you're saying too that you found a sense of happiness, like in that, just finding happiness in any given moment. So is that something that you consciously, is it a conscious decision that you make to do that? Because that can be difficult for someone that, maybe, especially entrepreneurs, right? You're going through a difficult time in your business maybe, or just things are not going the way you want to. So how do you make that switch to that consciousness, that happy consciousness, if that makes sense?
I must admit it's really hard and I'm not perfect at it, but the goal is to focus on the now so you can start breathing in and out, right?
Okay.
And then once you're able to focus on the now, think about what really matters to you. What are your goals and priorities? And then you'll be able to eliminate the stress and the clutter from your mind. We're always thinking of the 50 things we need to get done, but a lot of those things don't really matter or shouldn't really stress you out. They might matter, but they're not that important, and we forget again and again what's important to us. So being in the present moment allows us to remind ourselves and reset. And we could do this every, half an hour, every hour, whatever you need, and it instantly helps. It always helps to do this. Mm-hmm.
That's a great tip. Thank you so much for sharing. That's awesome. So, Dr. Novellus, on your website, thewealthyyogi.com, I love your brand name, by the way. It's so fun. You note the future is not the collection of unique sets of skills, but rather the integration of mind, body, faith, science, and spirit to build a harmonious lifestyle. I thought that was so interesting. Can you expound on this? And what can all entrepreneurs sort of take from this?
Well, most of us as entrepreneurs compartmentalize our lives. We're one way when we're running our business, we're another way when we are with our families, and another way when we're working out. And you should be who you are throughout all of your activities, and you shouldn't limit who you are based on the activity that you're doing. Mm-hmm. So if you're a person like myself that enjoys mindfulness needs to be a part of my entrepreneurial schedule strategy. It needs to be part of my fitness strategy. And once we're able to be our complete selves, no matter what we're doing, then we will have a clearer path, less distraction, and more confidence in what we're doing.
Clearer path and less distraction. Oh, the day. I hope for that soon. That's so good. That's really sort of a nice balanced approach. I love that, and I appreciate that. I think that's something that everybody could work on every day. I think you're absolutely right with the compartmentalization, and that it should really be more almost, what's the word? I'm trying to find the word to say really that it should be, essentially, I guess what you said, that it should all sort of flow in one pathway almost. It should all sort of work together.
Exactly.
That's not easy to do.
It's not.
That is certainly not an easy thing to do. So I'll work on that as well, Dr. Novellus. On your podcast, you mentioned your podcast, Startup Funding. And this, I can't wait to talk about this with you. So on your podcast, Startup Funding's inaugural episode, you make mention of a very challenging experience that happened to you when you were making your first major investment, right? I was personally floored by listening to this story. So tell us the story, if you don't mind, again. And also, was there sort of one key takeaway? I know you probably learned a lot from that experience, but was there one that sort of sticks out the most to you?
Right. So back in 2012, I was ready to go full-fledged into being an entrepreneur.
Okay.
And I told my close friend that growing up, we lived on the same street in San Diego, what I wanted to do. And she said, I have the perfect business partner for you.
Okay.
She has a Harvard PhD. She works just as hard as you do. Your skills are complementary, and I think it will be perfect. So this individual and I took 6 months kind of courting each other. We attended conferences together, talked about our dreams and ambitions, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And she provided financials, legal documents, all of this information. And I thought I did a fantastic amount of due diligence, and I was ready to go all in.
Okay.
So I sold my home in DC to purchase equity in this business. I moved from Atlanta to Miami, and I quit my management consulting job, all to go all in into this company, only to find out 3 weeks later that the financials were made up, the legal agreements didn't stand the test of time. They weren't done correctly, and that all of my money was pretty much gone. And it took me a couple weeks to accept that I needed to exit that situation and move back to Atlanta. And it took my mother saying, Roshawnna, it's just money. You'll make it again. And you're still the person that you are, even if you fail this one time. I know you're used to being successful at everything you do, but this is just one minor setback in your life, and it'll be okay. And so from that experience, back then I used to cry every time I told that story, but from that experience, I really learned that sunk cost is just that, right? I was staying in that situation. I lost all this weight. I was stressed out because I had invested so much, but you can't get the past back. So that experience taught me that evaluate where you are right now and decide if that's still right for you. And if it's not, that's okay. Right? And you are still you no matter if you have good days or bad days. And don't let the current situation of life detract from who you are. And in hindsight, I did learn a lot about the importance of due diligence and having third-party expertise involved in evaluating companies. So I'm okay with everything now, but that was like a major experience in my life.
So we'll get to something how it may tie into that later related to compassion, and I think that's an interesting tie in there. So Dr. Novellus, of course, you're a sought-after expert in finance. Let's break down funding 101 for the new entrepreneur, right? Someone who may be just getting out into entrepreneurship or have an interest in getting into entrepreneurship, and they hear terms tossed around like venture capital and angel investment. Can you briefly explain maybe a few of the most common types of funding sources available, what they really mean, and maybe some core must-haves for companies that are seeking startup capital?
Well, when a company is first starting out, usually they have to bootstrap, which is self-funding. So every entrepreneur should explore the available business credit options and personal credit options that are available. And I recommend if someone is transitioning from full-time employed to entrepreneurship to set up all of those agreements before they leave their corporate job, because it's much easier to get approved for financing if you have income already, right?
Okay.
And then beyond that, for most investors, the company needs to have revenue. want to know, the investor wants to know that you're all in and that there's a product market fit for whatever you're selling as an entrepreneur. And once you can show some revenue, entrepreneur or investors are more likely to entertain listening to what the business is about.
Okay.
So angel investors come in at an earlier stage than venture capitalists, and usually they come in when the company is raising, let's say, $500,000 to $1 million.
Okay.
And they'll put in smaller amounts. It could be as low as 5,000 or up to 250,000 or your whole seed round. And it just is based on what the investor's tolerance is.
Okay.
And usually, when you are raising your seed round from angel investors, you're raising enough money to pay for 18 months of expenses for that business.
Okay.
And then some businesses are able to move past the seed round if they're high growth companies and go to a Series A round. And at that point, venture capitalists usually come into the equation, and they'll invest higher amounts of money. But there's only a small percentage of companies that even go down this route.
Okay.
It's very small, so I don't want people to think that all businesses need angels or venture capitalist investments. Companies will have to give up equity ownership if they decide to go this route. So it's definitely something that all the founders need to be on board with, losing some control and pursuing this. But in order to be prepared for this kind of process, you need to have all your legal documents together, your structure together, all your employment contracts, be able and be willing to open up your books and, draw the curtain back on your business so that the investors can review your company.
Sure. That's great. That's great tips. Thank you so much for that. It's awesome. Because it can be intimidating. You hear venture capital tossed about so much that thank you for clarifying that it's not necessarily commonplace, and that most times you're bootstrapping just to kind of get through at least that initial part. But that venture capital really comes when you're at a more settled and a point where you're able to scale a little bit more. Did I understand that right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
All right, great. Thanks for clarifying that. So here's another thing, Dr. Novellus. There's really a dearth in funding in general for Black women entrepreneurs, especially in technology, with only 0.2% of Black women-owned firms receiving that same venture capital investment we talked about. And to break it down a little bit more, Digital Undivided produced a report called Project Diane, and they examined more than 60,000 startups, of which only 88 of those 60,000 were led by Black women. And of course, of these 88, only 11 Black women entrepreneurs in the tech industry received over $1 million in outside investment. There's so much to unpack just there alone, but in what ways can Black women entrepreneurs sort of counter this lack of financial support from investors and still grow viable and sustainable businesses? If you're not getting that infusion of cash up front, how can you then grow a sustainable business?
Well, I want to talk about the investor side first.
Yeah.
So there's a study from Harvard that said the gender disparity disappears when there is a woman on the investor evaluation side.
Okay.
And the same is true if there's a person of color. So there needs to be more women and people of color actually investing in these businesses.
Right.
That's what we need to change. Investors select companies that resonate with them, people who they know and can trust. And if an investor doesn't find any commonality with an entrepreneur, they're not going to invest in them. So if we can start changing the problem from the investor side as well, those numbers should increase. That being said, on the entrepreneur side, it's really difficult to change someone's mind. So I recommend that the entrepreneurs either focus on funds or programs that have a mission to help women and people of color. So start there. And once you're able to build traction, you can expand out to some of the other funding sources. But traction really can help eliminate the color and gender bias out there. It might not for certain investors, but do as much as you can to get the awards, get those customers, get that revenue, and you'll be able to have a higher likelihood of getting external funding.
That's good. All right, great. Thank you so much. So, the Startup Funding podcast, for which you, of course, are host, is for entrepreneurs, like who we just talked about, who may be ready to attract capital. And you speak with some great guests that include venture capitalists, angel investors, and CEOs of disruptive companies that really share tremendous amounts of information. So, what have you personally learned from listening to these people's stories? Like, what have you gained from out of it?
I've gained so much, but entrepreneurs and investors have such similar insights. Being an investor is just like being an entrepreneur because there's so much uncertainty, and you have to believe in the entrepreneur. You have to believe when you give someone your money that they're going to be great stewards of that money and go out and do what they said they're going to do. So there's a lot of trust there. But throughout all my guests, I realized that you have to be resilient and able to accept a lot of rejection and no's. One guest on my show, he was rejected 725 times from investors. Yet he was still able to raise the 1.5 million that he needed for his seed round of his company, and he eventually sold his company for several millions of dollars. But most of us can't even fathom being told no that many times. I know I can't. And even on the investor side, a lot of investors do all of this due diligence, all this work, only to find out the entrepreneur isn't being completely truthful, or some other investor steals the company away from them, and now there's no opportunity to invest. So they've done all this work and the opportunity disappears. The team doesn't believe in them. So I have really learned to be successful on either side of that equation. You have to do your best. Don't get attached to the results. This is back to yoga. Karma yoga tells us this too. Don't get attached to results and just keep on going. Do your best work. And that's all you can do. You can't control who will like it, who will say yes, who will say no. But if you keep on going along your path, odds are more likely than not that you will be successful.
That's so good. So don't get attached to the results. That's really good. I love that. Awesome. So you are very active in Atlanta's entrepreneurial landscape. And in your bio, early on, I mentioned that you have the honor of serving on the Commission on Women for the City of Atlanta. So tell us about your Enrich Her initiative, and why was this an important project for you to launch?
Well, I have attended so many different pitch events and investor events, and it's very rare that there are any women or people of color represented, just in my experience. And Atlanta is one of the top cities in the country for women-led businesses, yet these statistics still hold. So it was my mission to bring together women-led businesses with organizations that advocate on their behalf together in one initiative. So I'm proud to say we had over 1,000 views of our application to be a part of the Entrepreneur Showcase, and we had over 100 companies complete all of the information, and we did interviews and the like. We have over 30 organizations that have agreed to partner with this initiative in some way, and I'm just really, really excited that this can be a step forward towards seeing additional diverse representation in this ecosystem. My hope is that this initiative can help inspire women to push forward, because we are giving capital to at least one organization, we are also offering a source of funding that didn't exist prior to this initiative, and a source of inspiration. We have all of these amazing women who, such as the founding partner of Telemundo, Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative, and the list goes on, that will be there so that these women can interact with them and know that they are not alone in this ecosystem. So all of those are my passion points, and it has been worth it for me to have a little less sleep over the last couple months to make this vision a reality.
Yeah, well, good for you, and that's in line with my own heart. So I admire what you're doing, and I think that keep up the good fight. I understand the loss of sleep. Trust me, I do. I get it. So you are a member of several professional organizations and have completed, several certificate programs and licensures above and beyond your degrees because you just needed to learn a few more things, which I completely respect. So how important is it for entrepreneurs, especially newer entrepreneurs, right, to get involved with professional organizations? And what value have these organizations added to you in your business ventures?
Well, every individual should do an assessment of what they need. So it's really important to be in rooms with other entrepreneurs that you potentially can partner with, or you can leverage some of their experience, so that you can reduce the time it takes you to ramp up in your business. So like you mentioned, I'm in a variety of organizations, and some are just to help mastermind the entrepreneur process, while others are designed to help me focus on external outreach, branding, and the like. And each one has a place in my heart. But I recommend, if an organization doesn't help you grow or help you be happy or have something going for it, it's not worth your time. So don't join organizations just to join them.
Right.
So make sure you can learn, grow, or have some kind of, fun, something from that organization if you're going to include it in your life.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Very awesome. So let's talk about radical compassion. I saw one of your YouTube videos and you mentioned radical compassion. I feel like I heard it in an interview that you did as well. What does that mean? And why is this an important practice for you? So just kind of tie it back into what we discussed earlier about, this loss that just, tremendous loss that you had financially when making that investment and sort of upping and really changing your life to invest in this company that just didn't end up panning out, right? So how did you extend radical compassion then, and what is it? How does it help you in general?
Well, when people first start with compassion, the process, they start with people that are easy. So you start with babies and maybe our elders, right? They're easy to have compassion for. But what's really difficult is when you have to have compassion for people that you disagree with, that have hurt you in some way. And that's more radical because you have to let go of all your anger and hatred and all those emotions to say, hey, that person was doing the best that they could given their experience, their life, and their situation. And I accept that. So that's radical compassion. And when you are upset with someone or disappointed in someone, if you can just change your mindset to kind of think about that, you're able to let it go. That person is doing their best. It's not about me. They are doing their best. They thought this was their best course of action. Even though I don't agree with them, okay. And you can just kind of let it go. And it's really difficult, especially, it took me a long time to feel that way based on that person in my situation that I talked about earlier this interview. And it's really hard for me to feel this way with some of the politicians right now. But I still do believe that everyone is actually doing the best that they think that they can do. And if they're living within those parameters, you really can't hate them completely. So
it's admirable.
Yeah.
No, it's good. I think that's good. It helps you more than them, I'm sure. Because ultimately it's about how you feel and how you cope and you deal with things on a day to day rather than it's not an outward projection, in other words. It's a self implemented strategy.
And if you're focused on hatred and being angry, that means you're not focused on going to the next step, growing, doing something fun, solving the problem.
Sure.
So you have to transition from that space to moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. That's awesome. Dr. Novellus, your future is clearly very bright, and it really seems like you're just getting started. Though you are so accomplished, you're just getting started, and I can tell that. Do you have political aspirations? And if not, what are your long-term aspirations?
I actually do not have political aspirations.
Okay.
I love supporting people who are running, though. So I have helped with a couple campaigns, back office, a bit, because I feel like more people like us should be in office. That's a way for us to stop complaining, is to take action. So I believe in taking action, but my vision is to help as many women and people of color succeed as business owners. So I really want to grow my ability to bring capital to these businesses, education, and connections. And I hope in the future I'll be able to have my own fund so that I can help many more organizations grow.
Nice. So and we didn't really touch on it, but tell me about Bootstrap Capital.
Well, Bootstrap Capital was founded by myself and 3 other entrepreneurs who also bootstrap their own company. And the 4 of us have this same mission to help women and people of color succeed. So over the course of the last year, we've had demo days where we've highlighted companies in this demographic. We've also been able to direct monies to a couple companies, and we've had a couple educational events. Now, Enrich Her is actually a program of Bootstrap Capital, so it's also in the same vein, and hopefully, well, we'll see if I have enough energy to do the same thing for the women-led businesses as for businesses run by people of color. It's a lot of work, but again, the goal for everything that I do is to help bring those connections, education, and capital resources to these companies. And that's why Bootstrap Capital was founded.
Okay. Well, I have to tell you, we're just getting to know each other, but I'm super proud of you. I think you've done so many amazing things, so that's awesome. Okay, Dr. Novellus, now it's time for our rapid fire round of questioning. We want to get beyond the business of it all and get to know a few random but fun facts about you. Okay, you all set?
I'm all set.
Okay, awesome. Number 1. Which 3 words would you use to describe yourself?
Passionate, independent, and driven.
Okay, that's good. Good answer. Okay, here's one. What New Year's resolution have you made in the past that you were actually able to keep?
It's very, very rare that I ever even make New Year's resolutions. So I don't think I have one.
You don't have one. Okay, got it.
No.
Okay, here's one. Would you rather be invisible or be able to read minds?
Read minds.
Nice. If you could, wouldn't that be like, that could be dangerous, that reading of minds,
Yes, you would have to use your compassion and not take it
Oh,
personally.
good
Yes,
tie-in.
right. Yes.
Okay, nice. Okay. So, if you could invite four famous people to dinner, who would you choose and why?
Of course, President Obama.
Okay.
He's just
Not
amazing.
President Trump.
No.
Okay.
Oprah,
Okay, Mama Oprah.
uh, Martin Luther King, if I could bring him back to life.
Okay.
And let's see, for the fourth one, I would do someone contemporary like Kat Cole because I just admire her so much.
Okay.
And all of these people were able to strike out on their own. They weren't liked by most people, and they were still able to do what they thought was necessary and move past all of the negative attention, saying you don't look right, you don't have the right education, it's not the right time for you to be successful.
Yeah.
And all people said, I don't care about all that. I am going to make it.
Right. That's awesome. What a great dinner. So say this phrase 3 times fast. Okay? It's a doozy. So prepare yourself. You can even write it down. If you have a pen, I'll even let you do that, okay? Okay, here goes. Lesser leather, never weathered, wetter, weather, better.
I didn't even hear the whole thing.
Okay, I'll read it one more time. I crack myself up with these things, though. It's so crazy. Okay. Lesser leather, never weathered, wetter, weather, better.
Lesser leather, never weathered, wetter, better. No.
Weather better.
Wetter weather better?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Lesser leather, never weathered, wetter weather better. Lesser leather, never weathered, wetter weather better. Lesser leather, never weathered, wetter weather better.
Awesome. That was neat. You did so good.
You just wanted to laugh at me.
Of course. That's what we do here on this show. No, you know what? I just always find the juxtaposition so funny to me because, you ladies are so amazing and so accomplished that you gotta let your hair down here and there. You know what I mean? And it's good for people to see that, you can laugh at yourself. Why not? So it's really all about that for me. Well, Dr. Novellus, you've been great, and I want to really extend my deepest gratitude to you for spending a bit of your very valuable time with me and the Gradient Global Collective podcast listeners. You truly do exemplify the innate brilliance and moxie of Black women entrepreneurs globally, and I am honored to have gotten to know you just a little bit. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much for including me. I'm so happy to speak with you today.
Oh my goodness, I am as well. So tell me, before we get off of here, how can people follow you and learn more about Richer or your Startup Funding podcast or even Bootstrap Capital? Tell us how we can stay connected and maybe some of your social handles.
Okay, well, you can find out more about Enrich Her at enrichher.co.
Okay.
And Bootstrap Capital is at bootstrapcapital.co. My personal brand is thewealthyyogi.com.
Mm-hmm.
And you can find me on Instagram at Roshawnna Novellus.
Mm-hmm.
And LinkedIn, same thing at Roshawnna. And I am the only person with my name in the world, so I am very easy to find. So even if you go to Google and type in Roshawnna Novellus, you will find me everywhere.
That's good. It pays to have a unique name. That's awesome.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, again, thank you so much, Dr. Novellus. It's been a pleasure and an honor to speak with you, and I'm excited for your future. I know you're going to do great things.
Thank you for listening to the Gradient Global Collective podcast. Follow us and talk to us on Instagram at Gradient Global.